Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Creation Soup. I have my beautiful friend Belinda here. She is a Reiki master and medium, and I'm Chelsea, and I'm your host. Um, Today we're talking about energy healing modalities and our own personal experiences, and I'm really excited to see what this conversation holds for us. So, if you want to tell us a little bit about you, Belinda, I'd love to hear, and we can
Sure.
get on with it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for letting me join you on this adventure. I am honored to be number two. um, I am a Reiki master teacher, as Chelsea said, and I've also, for the last almost 3 years now, maybe, have been doing mediumship readings and spirit sketches along with those mediumship readings. I am evolving into channeling spirit and just being really open to the energies that are around me. And it seems like this last few years that Chelsea and I have worked together, you and I have really opened up in a way that it's just offering so many more opportunities to do different things. And so I can't really define who I am and what I'm all about, or a little bit about myself, because there's so many different facets of who I am now that I really never dreamed that would be my story, honest to goodness. And it's been a really, really fun ride. And I'm looking forward to the next 10 or 15, 20 years doing this kind of work, because it's something new every single day. So that's
I
my
know,
story,
it
I
just
guess.
seems to just get more exciting and strange every few weeks as we go. We've done a lot of work
Yeah.
together. We've done a lot of different things together, as far as we do Reiki shares and energy clearings in different locations, channelings. We get together to help heal each other. We have different ways of bringing the energy in, and it seems to balance each other out really well. You tend to have warm Reiki, and I tend to have cold Reiki. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
I
I
mean,
think
it
it
kind of goes
goes,
back and forth.
yeah, and it kind of goes with yeah, it goes back and forth because it's the phase we're in and then who we're matched with at the moment. So all the time, if I have an internal need to do some healing and I don't recognize that, I am sent someone who has a parallel kind of need for healing. And then the message comes through me, and I'm healed by my healing, because the healer is healed while they're healing. And then I get through the end of the session, and I'm giving all the information to the client, and the bells and whistles are going off in my head and saying, "Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening?" And then there's my answer. So it depends on what the need is that we have and what cycle we're in, because we've talked before that we're always going in this up and down, up and down, up and down. But I feel like the cold is also associated with the darkness, and then the warmth is associated with the light. So when you feel like you're in that light space, then and I felt like I've been in the cold and the dark space. So it's interesting how it all
Yeah.
comes together.
When you said that, I was thinking of the cold kind of being like a sucking vacuum, and then like the warm being like a filling up kind of energy. And I do feel both of those a lot. And that's really
I love that.
interesting to put it in those ways. Because when someone has a big release, I use that imaginative kind of skill of, I imagine Source just coming in and sucking all the stuff that they've let go, up and out of their body and out of the room and out of, me too, because like you said, every time we work with someone, all that stuff hits us too, and ends up being a beautiful, healing, revealing for everybody, because
Yeah.
it's a whole experience we do together.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the first thing I kind of wanted to clarify was just where this energy comes from. Some people are a little bit weirded out when it comes to Reiki, and I think it'd be good to have a short conversation about where the energy comes from, how we channel it through our bodies, and what it all kind of means. So if you'd like to go first, I'll go after, and we can kind of hit that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, feel free to jump in as I'm talking too, because
Yeah,
our conversations always work best. We play off each other. We sometimes
we'll
can't
fill
stop.
in.
We need to fill in. Yeah.
This
We
is
need
going to
say,
be
"Oh,
a
yeah, me
3-hour
too."
podcast.
Yeah. Don't worry, everybody. We're gonna just keep it low, but yeah. So how the energy comes in for me, you're saying?
Yeah.
I I have over the course of time I've experienced the energy coming in differently, which is really incredible because that is how I keep learning, is that I have an expectation of what I'm going to feel or what I'm going to experience each time I do a healing session on myself, on someone else, on pets, however it goes. So I have this concept of, okay, the energy is going to okay, so I'll back up just a second. As a Reiki master teacher, my job is to teach the traditional method of Reiki, the Usui Shiki Ryoho method of Reiki. So as I go through that process of teaching people, I hold on to the tradition of knowing the hand placements, the prescribed, if that's the right word, if you will, the way that the energy comes down through the crown and out through the palms of the hands. And then I'm teaching people to pay attention to those zones and how the energy flows through them. And someone had once mentioned, imagine yourself a faucet. So your crown is open and the energy is flowing through you. So you're not pulling the energy from your body, you're pulling the energy from source, from God. And so when the energy comes through me, I think sometimes that I'm stuck in that traditional method of thinking, oh, this is how it's going to happen for me again. And then I get into the session and I feel the person's anxiety, or I feel the person's questioning, or their hesitation about, is this real or is it not? So the energy generally for me, because it's changing, I mean, I do have a general way that energy comes in for me, and I do pull that energy down through my crown. It's almost a visualization of how I begin my session is really traditional, and offering a prayer and offering thanks to the universe and source for allowing me to use that healing energy. So the energy automatically activates in my crown and activates my hands. So I know the energy is pulling in from my outer space and then through my hands. So when I'm actually feeling that energy, it changes. It could be hot, could be cold, could be prickly, could be tingly, could be palpitating in the palms and that kind of thing. So when you're putting your hands on someone, when I'm laying my hands on someone, it is informing me about what they might be experiencing. And then if we're able to have conversation with the person, the client at some point, you can really validate some of the things that you're feeling in your session. The more open I feel I become, I understand from source more, and if people that I'm working on are open to hearing the messages, they are absolutely being given more information because they're ready for it. And I feel like the more energy that comes in, that starts to envelop my space, or my healing space. So, we set up our healing spaces so they're nice and comfortable, and, put our heating blankets on our massage tables and that kind of thing. But you could have that kind of heat even if you didn't have those tools, because the heat that comes from those
you might not need heat, especially in your sessions.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's going to be sweating on the table.
Sometimes we're getting I was going to say, we're getting drenched in sweat during some, because it's just so much beautiful love energy coming through that it's like you're overheating, and I'm stripping layers of clothes off to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Those are fun ones.
Yeah.
So when you're laying your hands and tapping in and channeling, for me too, we're receiving stuff at the same time. So can you explain a little bit about how, and I'll jump in too, because I mean, you explain it very well. We're very similar in how we do that. We're channeling, and so it's a mix of tapping into the person's energy, and also listening to angels and guides, and listening to their chakras, and what they have to say to us and how their chakras, make up their aura, because all of these things are kind of, it's a way to diagnose kind of what's going on in the body and in the spirit, because we have all these layers. So there's actually a lot going on in these sessions that the people who are on the table, they may feel a little bit of it, but there's a lot going on that they probably don't realize as we're doing all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that so I can compare a new client who's never had a Reiki session, who might have been gifted a gift certificate or won it at a raffle, and they just want to try it out and see if it's for them. And then the difference between a new person and a familiar person, I should say, to the energy work, that they are ready to absorb and ready to release whatever it is that their intention is for that session. So when and we don't have to lay our hands on the body either. At some point, right, the healer's intuition, that inner knowing, begins to open so widely because you trust in the universe to tell you what it is that person needs from you at that moment. And it's that, someone setting up a session with you is that permission. And then the conversation ahead of time, before the session, are you open for the messages that may come through for you? Are you open to the healing? What are your intentions for the session? We ask all those questions so that we can help facilitate the best healing for that person that's right for their highest and best good at that moment. And so when you're open and when you're even more intuitive, the guides, my guides, work with me, and their guides work with my guides. Sometimes I don't even know whose guides are talking about what. I'm just allowing the information to come in so that that person that is trusting me with their healing is getting the information they need for themselves at that moment and getting that healing energy. There's a level of, once that trust is established, there's that level of relaxation that someone can say, okay, I'm ready to absorb this healing. I'm ready to accept this. I'm ready to allow that to help me reach a better balance in my body. And once they're there, sometimes it takes 5 or 10 minutes into the session, because the initial energy starts to relax the body and relaxes the person into this point of total. Some people just feel like they are just total goo on the table, or they just feel warm and cozy, or however it is for them, but they allow that to come through for them so that that energy can work so much better for their body, to right the energy and to transmute the energy that's no longer needed, which is what creates illness and pain and chronic illness even. Mm-hmm. So when we're laying our hands on the body, Source is allowing us to feel that so that we can direct the energy, so that we can draw attention to that energy for the client. Chelsea, you are the one that taught me when I felt the energy get stuck in a person, I didn't know what to do with it. And I think that's awesome, because you naturally knew what to do with that and helped to draw that person's attention to it and imagine that as a nice, whatever, give it whatever shape, size, color, feel they want to, but draw that energy in through the breath and release it. And so that's a technique that I use all the time now, because you can see how people's breathing will change if they are getting if they really want to hang on to that energy that the energy is trying to release, the healing energy is trying to release, then we have to coach them through that. It's that kind of like a little meditative visualization during the session when I can feel that energy get stuck.
Absolutely. Presence really is all it needs most of the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're resisting, and we all resist when there's some uncomfortable feelings that come up. But when we can relax into it, it kind of melts it, and then you're like, oh, I'm actually sad. I'm actually sad. I wasn't angry. I'm sad. And I do a lot of inner child work with those energies too. And I think, we always talk about how your energy work is kind of like going to a spa day. And I love that so much. And I know that you work with, the harder emotions and things like that too. But I love your energy work so much because it's that uplifting, and you bring me up into these higher chakras here, where the reason I learned how to do a lot of the releasing is because for many years I had to figure out how to drill down into my own lower chakras in order to kind of release my own burdens so that I could heal myself. I was just talking to someone this morning about how all of us healers, our first client is ourselves, and that's really how we learn to do what we do, and how we share it is delving into all of the things that we hold in our own bodies and figuring out how do we navigate the hard things and listen to the messages that these things have for us. And I think it's a beautiful thing too. You mentioned that we don't have to even touch someone. We don't even have to be in the same room. We can be across the country, across the world. And if someone gives you their permission to do this work with them, then you can feel it no matter the distance or time. And sometimes I'll send energy work to someone and I tell them it's in your spiritual mailbox. Whenever you want to, relax and go tap in and get that, it'll be there for you, because time or distance doesn't seem to matter for this work either.
No, that's right.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Thank you so much for saying that about the energy being so relaxing for you, because over time I've learned that when I have some deep stuff that needs to be released, you're my go-to, because you're the one that does things. And if I need to relax, that I'm kind of doing my own Reiki stuff, because there are certain, you have a stressful day, and I've talked to people about this a lot in the last couple weeks, is that every single time I have a stressful day, I forget my own tools. I forget I have that. I don't even need anything. I can just set aside the humanness for a moment, my desire to hang on to my stress, because it's self-serving. It's a self-serving sacrifice that I make. And I've uncovered this MO recently. I'm learning to not sacrifice, and I have to remember my tools are there. So if I need to just peel back some of the layers of the onion, then I can use my Reiki, or I use my biogenesis tools, or I seek someone out, or, do a sound healing, whatever. And when I know that I've been traipsing through life, stumbling, I should say, through life for multiple weeks, a repeating theme keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, I seek you out, because you can lay your hands on me and say, "Oh, Belinda, you need to let this go." And then I instantly react with, not yet. Nope, don't do it, And by the end of the session, it's, of course, me ending up in a ball fest, a crying fest. But that's my preferred way of releasing, any energies. But I appreciate that about our energy, and I think we're so yin and yang about that. It's that your energy is, you can go to those really dark places where I am still most comfortable in allowing the energy to help someone work through their own things. I have had sessions that have been really, really, really intense, and I think it's because it's also touched a chord within me that I needed to also pay attention to that particular lesson or healing, physical or emotional. And there have been times where I've been so emotionally engaged in the healing that I think that has even served to heal me in a greater way than a typical Reiki session, that it's sharing the energy, and person feels really balanced, they have a great night's sleep the next night, and just the typical kind of thing. But it's all perfect timing. for whatever's
Yeah.
going on in life.
I think we need both, and if either one is out of balance, I know that I can get stuck in shadow work and I can get stuck in picking things apart and being like, well, where did this shit come from? Where is it that I need to fix it, fix it, fix it? Where do I need to change my belief systems? And then I sometimes, where that's good, like it's all in the toolbox, right? But you can't use the same tool all the time, right? So there's sometimes I need the Belinda treatment where I need to just be like, okay, now it's time to just bask and just let it go and not pick it apart and not delve into the darkness today. It's just time to just be grateful, use my gratitude, use my higher energies to lift myself out. And I think on the negative side, because there's that for every single subject that there is, for you sometimes, so I get stuck in the shadow. Sometimes you get stuck in the
Oh my
in the
gosh.
light. Everything's fine. It's fine. We're good. We just need, just need some gratitude. Everything's fine. So like, it's so, I just think it's so funny because we balance each other so well on that. And sometimes you remind me you don't have to be all, figuring it out all the time. And I remind you like, okay, maybe we should go in a little bit deeper with this one and and feel what's really down in there and let those emotions come out.
Yeah. And it's also about seeing what's in front of me in a very, I don't know if it's a realistic way or not. I don't know if there's a word for it, but seeing what's in front of me for what it is. There we go. Because
Yeah.
this is a theme that's playing out in my professional life too, my career life, I'll call it. This is my light work life. And this is, it's starting to blend together a little better because I've figured out ways that those two lives can blend together. And it's not that I live this duality. It's that there are some things that are appropriate for me to do in my career work, and there's things that people would feel uncomfortable with. So, you only go so far in being your light worker self when you're in your career work. So it's a theme that's also played out in my both areas, that I'm not seeing things for what they are in front of me. So I'm missing out on those opportunities to learn those lessons. And I think that's where some of the stress and some of the stuckness comes, when I'm repeating these themes over and over and over, repeating the lesson. It could be a day between, it could be hours between, it could be weeks between, months between, whatever. But those themes continue because up to this point, and I will say up to this point because it really came to me actually on Tuesday this week, that I am entering 2025 with my eyes wide open. And there's some really hard realities that we have to look at, but there are really beautiful realities that I can still hang on to, that I've seen for years, or I've always known that are there, that when we get shadowed by daily must-dos, all the things that humans have to do. I'll explain that in a minute too, because people are probably wondering, what are you talking about? You get shadowed by the humanness of the world, and then you get kind of bogged down, and that's when we have to go into those other places. And I'm so grateful that came up for me, because it's also playing out in the light worker career work.
Do you mean moving between the spirit realm and the human realm in that way? Of like,
what did I just say that I wanted to go back to? You're gonna have to cut this part out. That's hilarious. Let's go back. Yeah, spirit's like, nah, don't even bother.
It's fine. Well, you said it was hard to be human, and it's hard to bring some of these instances in where you are your light worker version into like being very human, and we have to go to work and we have to do all these other things that aren't very fun, frankly.
Right.
And everybody's not ready for these kinds of conversations, which is why things are coming more into the mainstream, I think, as we go forward. But for a long time, these were conversations that you really only had very kind of in secluded places with people who you knew were safe and understanding, or else, I mean, you might end up in the loony bin talking about, I'm hearing voices, and there's things I'm seeing that other people aren't seeing, and all this stuff. So I mean, that's a whole nother topic for another day, of like, how do you navigate being extrasensory and also being a muggle, like you say, like being a normal person who you don't really talk to a whole lot of people about all of you, the wholeness of you. And there's things that you experience going through life too, where you may have a boatload of extra knowledge or information. Sometimes it's not even intentional. You don't want to read the room. You don't want to read people. And then you're having to try to shut these things out so it doesn't affect you, so you can function. And I think, this next few years, with the ascension, with the energy that's coming in, I think more people are having experiences that they can't explain away, in the way of weird things happening that are extrasensory and paranormal, and you're running the gamut with alien stuff, and you're seeing shadow figures out of nowhere, and maybe it's spooky, maybe it's beautiful, because all these things exist. But it is really hard to exist in situations where people don't know that part of you, and it's kind of like you're going back into the closet in a way of, I just have to be this version of me that's a little bit more condensed. But I just love being around you and all of my other, beautiful connections in this work, because it's so freeing. It's like I could say anything and you might not quite understand it, but we understand each other on a level of like, I don't know, there's so much more here to explore, so many more dimensions and beings and things that we were never told. And I think that's part of the reason for this podcast, is because people need to know that the weird experiences and the weird dreams they have that they can't explain, and the things they see in the sky, and these weird energies you feel walking around people, even in the grocery store. You can feel different people's energies as you walk by them, and you may even get a thought here and there. And to recognize that we're all these energy transmitters and receivers, walking around in this soup of energy all day long.
Think about the empath's journey. If you don't realize you're an empath, and there's all sorts of philosophies, and people have written about their experiences, and overall, I truly believe that if we have 100 books on the same exact topic, it's going to be different, because every one of us has a different experience. So you were talking about, the ability to, you have a safe space, and you and I give each other that safe space to just express what it is that is coming through for us. And neither one of us, we may not understand each other, as you said, but neither of us questions it, because there are so many different aspects to, I don't even know. It blows my mind to even go down that rabbit hole, because how you see something is going to be different how I see something, but we could be really looking at the same thing. We could be in 10 different dimensions looking at the same thing, bringing back information to ourselves or to others around us, and it's the same thing, but it's totally different. And the empath, if you don't realize that you're an empath as a very young child, and there are theories on this that children who've experienced trauma become empaths, and that's probably true too, but I also feel like there are some that are born as an empath, or born with abilities, intuition. And if you're in this environment that you're constantly absorbing other people's feelings, and you don't know how to separate your own, you don't know how to ask yourself, no one's ever suggested to you, ask yourself, is this mine? Is this mine?
Yes.
And listen to
little kids. Little kids are so sensitive. I don't even care. I think everybody comes in probably with this empathy, and then it gets I wanted to say like beaten out of you. I guess some people get it beaten out of you, but you know,
The
beaten in a
experience.
way of, yeah,
Yeah.
by experience and verbally, you know, your
You're
little
discouraged.
imaginary friends aren't real, or why are you crying even though, you know, somebody's angry and not angry at the kid. They could be upset because they can feel all of that,
Yeah.
you know, very emotional beings. And then we're kind of taught to turn our emotions off. And I think that's the biggest, that is just the
Yeah.
biggest violation.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking
Partiality.
about how different things come through in
Hmm.
our minds and how we could understand the same message in 1,000 different ways, I thought that was interesting because look, I got a little mess of my uh, the I want to talk about how we learn to understand what the dimensions and our guides and the universe as a whole, everything is trying to talk to us, and how it's so funny that I'm trying to think of an example. We could have a symbol in our mind or a way that something comes through that is the same message, but I might get it as a color
Hmm.
or a color mixed with an emotion, and you might get a picture in your mind, or you might
Hmm.
get a couple words in your mind's ear, or however you
Yeah.
might describe it. Um, there's a way, and we do this when we talk about intuition development, to
Yeah.
talk to the universe and talk to the matrix in a way, because that's, I mean, that's basically what it is,
Hmm.
so that we can take these frequencies that we're given, which is the messages and the guidance. They're going through just like a sound radio wave. And how do we tune our radio to that frequency so we can hear it clearly? But then we have to agree with the universe, or else they're just going to use our own perceptual lenses. You know, if I associate grief with, and this is a true example, with the smell of a bouquet of flowers. For me,
Hmm.
it reminds me of someone who passed when I was 10. That was very, very important to me. But for me, the smell of a fresh, beautiful bouquet of flowers isn't like a really happy, happy thing. So when I smell that and there is no there's no flowers around, it reminds me of that. So I can associate that with maybe you lost someone at a young age, or maybe you're
Hmm.
grieving over someone who's put more space between the two of you than you would like, or something like that. Um, and the same thing goes with the good things too, you know. I don't know. Can you think of an example here that?
Yeah. So I'm I'm thinking that there's symbolism, and I want to just share that when I first started channeling this information, when my intuition really opened and blossomed, I was a couple of years into teaching. Well, I was about a half a year, maybe 6 months into teaching classes and the Usui Shiki Ryoho Reiki, and doing more sessions and really opening, giving permission to source to give me, give me some signs, give me, is this my path, is this, should I be doing more of this, should I be doing something else, should I continue just doing things the way that I've been taught? I just kept wanting more, and I kept wanting to know more. And it was almost permission for my guides to start working with me a little bit more. And in the beginning, I thought I should follow the guidance of the people that came before me that had taught me a little bit that intuition development that you talked about. I took a couple classes, and there are some beginning ways to start to hone that. And over time, I realized that I don't get symbolism. Like one symbol meaning one or a group of things for me. So it's not like if I see a wedding ring, somebody's gotten married or there's been a divorce, or it doesn't have. It's not that kind of symbolism. What comes to me is more the symbolism for that person. So everything, because I'm allowing my guides and source to work with me in that person's best and highest good. And those are always my opening prayers when I start a session, because I don't want it to be I've worked really hard to get my ego out of the way. Because I'll be honest, it feels so good to be able to pass those messages to people, and it's so rewarding. And I think, oh, that's ego. You got to pull that back a little bit, but it's almost honoring source as well. It's honoring them in the way that I can verbalize in our human language what they want to express to somebody, that they only have a certain way to express because they're on the other side, they're in the energy field. So the energy field can work with me and work through me to give those messages to people. And the more I reinforce that and take the ego out and stop trying to describe based on my own experiences and my own symbolism about what I'm getting, the more transparent and the more clear the messages are. So if I can remember this vividly too. I had a very rigid way that I would approach readings, and so I would think to myself, okay, just open your mind, try not to define anything, try not to use your human in here, just allow them to help you, because I'll sketch, and then the information will flow through. Now what's happening is the information is flowing through, and then I sketch, if they let me, but it's just changing. So the first time I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get a face and I'm going to sketch it, and my drawings are very soft and subtle, but sometimes they'll give me definition. And in the beginning, they were just, giving me all sorts of details about their hair and their eyes and their mouth. And then it started to, if someone had a mask on before they passed, sometimes they would like blur their mouth, and I'm like, what is that? And so the first time I paid attention to that, I'm like, oh. And I listened and I waited, and the information came through. Did the person have an oxygen mask on before they passed? And the person that I was reading for said yes, they were on oxygen for many years before they died, or however long it was. Okay, so thanks for the validation. And then the person I was reading, the energy that was channeling through me showed me, and it's all intuitive images and just a clear knowing, the clairsentience. They had a box in their hands, and then there was something inside the box, but they didn't let me see what was inside the box because that wasn't for me to know. So I told the person that I had a box in my hands, and I hesitated for a very long time before saying I had a box in my hands, because I was still stuck on the definition of what I should be doing based on what I had been taught. So, so you even with energy healing, sometimes I second guess, is that my feeling, or is that the person's energy that I'm receiving? And then
that's all the work right there.
Yeah, there's that little ego that says, she can't possibly be right about this, or it says, oh, this is for sure what it is, and you just blurt it out, and you're 10 football fields away. Like, it came from somewhere.
Well, if it surprises us, usually if it surprises me, then I know it's not coming from me, because I'm like, what the hell was that? And it's like a puzzle piece we have to, or a puzzle we have to put together with the client and be like, so, because sometimes I'll get an image, and I've gotten images of like people's pets, what their house looks like, or something that's happened to them in the past. But then I also get really weird symbolism where I'll get animals doing weird things that what the message coming through is for me to describe emotionally what's happening in the vision that I'm getting. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's not that they have a donkey that's frolicking around in a field or whatever it is, because I have a lot of animal things, just because I love animals, and I think Spirit uses that as like it's entertaining for them to watch me describe whatever it is that I'm seeing, and it ends up being a good laugh. But
there's a lot of humor that comes through.
Yeah, you just have to trust it, and 9 times out of 10 there are the few that are like, I don't know what that means, that does not resonate, but that's rare, and you just have to deal with that. And no psychic or energy healer is always going to be spot on. There's always going to be things that are kind of messy, or they're just in our minds because God knows why, just like everybody else. But 9 times out of 10, you let those weird messages come through, whatever it is, and the dots will connect eventually, whether it be like an actual vision of something that's in their life, or if it's just an emotion, or maybe they need a message about how to recalibrate something, and I get shown, a toad that has no water, or it's just, I can tell you it is weird stuff.
So you're cut out for the work. You are light years ahead of me, because where they're at with me is really literal translation, but now it's interesting, because the more I work with people, even messages that come through energy healing, sometimes it's a really abstract message, and the person who receives it is the one that defines it, and I'm just giving the information. And I think they are testing me, because I have agreed to give that person the information that I'm comfortable giving, because sometimes it's beyond what I'm comfortable with at that moment. Mm-hmm. So, and it could be for any number of reasons, but they're testing me to see if my ego is going to decipher what I'm supposed to tell them, or if I just go ahead and say, there's a red fire engine coming down the street in front of your house.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. It could be that their dad was driving by with the fire truck one day, and they remember an image of them, waving their hand at the side of the street, or, it could mean, whatever, but it's for that person, and I'll ask just, so when I say I'm asking, it's an instantaneous, the thought comes into my head, and energy speed is so instantaneous that my guides, or the spirits I know, the spirits I'm channeling for, they instantly know what the question is, and my humanness slows it down. So they do have difficulty kind of getting that message through to us sometimes, because we're still human trying to do energetic things. So they have to say different words sometimes to get us to the place where we're understanding the sequence. Your camera just froze for a bit of a second, so just you'll want to cut that part off. But when we're receiving that message, if we're saying it like it is, spirit automatically corrects me, and they'll say, well, it's not really that, it's this, or they'll keep leading me to it. So the information that person is getting is going to be more relevant for them, and I don't have to understand it. I just have to relay it. And if I really am trusting that the images I'm getting, it's not about me, that's where the ego comes in and wants to define everything. If I can set that aside, then that is a magical moment of healing, and even in a energy healing or in a reading. I don't even know. It's so humbling and so gratifying to be in that space, which is why I want to do it all the time. Like, I wouldn't sleep. I would do this all the time.
I know. It's so fun. I had this one, I was doing just mini sessions one day, and sometimes I think the universe just wants me to give a message just so the person knows that this stuff is real. And I think this was one of those situations, because all of a sudden we're like wrapping things up, and I'm seeing like one of the cats from the musical Cats in the spandex, and he's dancing around with his tail and everything. And I'm like, I'm not gonna tell her this, because there's some things where I'm like, it's just, my mind is a circus anyway. So sometimes I'm just like, this is just too far. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. And I just blurted it out just because. And I was like, so why am I seeing one of the guys from the Cats musical, spandex and all, and he's having a great time? And she goes, oh my God, I just watched that last night.
That's great.
And I was like, well, I don't know why they showed me that, but there you go. So sometimes it's just to say, we're here. Maybe you should tap in a little bit, because this stuff is real. Sometimes that's really the only reason that that they do that. And sometimes it's very profound, and it's, it's loved
Yeah.
ones, and it's
Yeah.
messages that are
Yeah.
very important. I work a lot with the chakras, and I know you do too. Um, I don't know. Maybe we should talk a little bit about what that looks like for both of us, and um, I guess I'll go first since I made you go first last time.
Sounds good.
Let's see, because it's so interesting, and I don't really like the word like divination because it just seems so like witchy, but I kind of use the chakras as a way to do divination in a way. It's kind of like my diagnosis for when I'm going through someone's energy.
Yeah.
So if anybody isn't too familiar with the chakras, you can look them up, but it starts with red at the root, and it goes all the way up the colors of the rainbow to indigo and violet here at the top. And so the red, orange, and yellow, which is solar plexus and below, for me are the ones that are kind of the heavier ones, and you can find different information from different places and practitioners on these. But for me, those are the ones that hold kind of the heavier trauma stuff, and they also deal with survival, and especially the red, root, and sacral are the ones that are starting you off being birthed and seeing and holding those family structures of when you were younger and how that translates up the body to how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, getting into the solar plexus. Sacral energy would be taking that and seeing if you can create out of how you were raised in that way. Do you feel like you had the stability to then now move into the world and create what you want to create, or is that a little bit shaky? That's what you see in the sacral, which is the second chakra, that orange. Yellow in the center of your belly here is associated with identity, and I find a lot of fire in that one. It's fiery. It's unless you're like a shy person. I mean, you can have blockages in any chakra, and it comes out in different ways. We could probably spend a whole episode just on chakras too. But as we move up, we have the heart, throat, third eye, and the crown. And as you move up, the heart is kind of that intermediary between the astral realms and the human realm, as you can imagine, being the center of love and connection to yourself and others. The throat chakra, to me, seems to be a valve that goes in and out between the two. So some people think of it just as, are we being our authentic selves? But I've noticed, too, that people who have a stuck throat chakra have a hard time, like food coming in, taking in the love from others into the heart here. So this one seems very valve-like to me, from the outside world into the inner world here. And then once we get up into the third eye and the crown, we're talking about psychic intuition, your imagination screen, whether or not, if your third eye is closed here, you're going to be kind of in the rat cage of thoughts. You might either have a hard time with your imagination, you might be kind of dull in that way where you don't really have a very vivid imagination, or it might be overactive in the way that it's not really connected to source in that way, but it's you have a hard time sleeping, you have a hard time shutting off those repetitive thoughts about what's going on. You might have rumination, those kind of things you see with the blocked third eye. And then up in the crown, and I don't know how you feel about this, I'm getting like multiple trains of thought emerging right here. Um, I feel like the crown is a tough one for people to really access um, unless for me it happened via trauma because I was like, nope, not going down in these lower chakras. I'm going to escape into this other place. So by disassociating as a young person, I was actually meditating and disassociating. And so, good and bad, right? Because I didn't want to be here, because it was painful to be here. That allowed me to open up through here in the imagination and in the, maybe that would be more third eye, because crown, once you get up here, you're realizing you are connected to everything. And if you can disassociate from your body enough, from your identity, who you are as a human, I suppose it wasn't until I started seeking guidance from a higher place that that dissociation and meditation turned into the crown chakra actually opening. The practice of meditation was there because I knew how to focus on not being here, but I wasn't sure how to access something higher, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So what I was going to say though, when those two lines came in, was I feel like being at opposite ends of the spectrum, the crown and the root are probably the toughest ones to really get in there and open, unless you are, like I said, trauma, and then you do the healing up, but you have to do both at the same time in order to really balance it, or else, let's say you're all up in these upper chakras and there's no ability to go down in the lower ones, you're going to be off and running like like a balloon flying around in the wind with hardly a tether there. You're going to feel like you're all we get into mental issues, and some psychotic things going on there when you're having spiritual experiences. It could be light and dark, and you don't know how to ground and how to know what's real and how to how to navigate those realms. And at the same flip side of the coin, if you're down in these lower chakras, you probably don't even know anything about there being anything other than human survival. You're going to work, you're pretty miserable, you're focused mostly on
No
your
creative
day-to-day.
outlets. No.
Yeah. How else would you describe that? That could be as an anger too, and a depression as well. If you feel disconnected from everybody and everything, like you're alone, that would kind of be like a festering in the lower chakras here, because your heart isn't really open. Your upper chakras aren't really open to realizing that you're not alone. And that was quite the tangent. Sorry about that. But
No.
I felt like people probably should.
Yeah, it's a magnificent way to explain the chakras because you have such an in-depth connection to them that I have not experienced yet. I tune in to the chakras. So there's the healing side and the personal experience, the healing side experience and the personal side experience. In my own healing with the chakras, after a while I realized that I wasn't even able to sense my upper chakras for a long time. And I guess it was that I lived in the middle, because I'm always about balance, even Steven. So if I kept a balance, then I was good. Utilizing my heart to keep harmony among people, utilizing my voice to say just enough to take the pressure valve off of anything, relationships or any strife in my life that was bothering me. I would say just enough so that I didn't feel bad because I was being too harsh or whatever. You know, I have my own definitions about how I behave. And I could get into my creative sense. I knew who I was, but I also knew that I didn't want to rock the boat. Those were things. So I lived between maybe the upper sacral and the throat. And then when I started to do more healing work, of course, intuition opened and I started to kind of get to here. And until I started doing some very specific healing modalities, some different types of healing modalities, I don't think I tapped into my crown very often. And now I can, and it's so different than I guess I thought I was when I was here. And then when you get into here, you're connected with source. And so when I'm doing healing work, I'm asking, because I don't have the definitions or the experience or the sensations around, like you have this inner knowing about the chakra areas. And I think that comes from your gifted ability to see the aura, to see the energy centers of the body, and that's not where I started. So I glean information about those things, and your definition was beautiful because it is exactly the process that happens for a person. So if I'm in an energy healing session and I am hovering, I'll say, over the body. So I'll test the energy centers by going from root to crown or crown to root, depending on where I am. I just don't really even have any design, I guess. And I guess I go where I'm led. And so when my hands are above the body, I can feel the energy of that chakra, and I can most often, there are some clients I've worked on that I have not been able to tell, and then later I've discovered in another session or two or through other things that maybe that was the indicator that chakra was closed and not functioning in the way that it should, or it was it could even be that it was overactive, like some attention was needed to place there. So now I'm learning that I need to pay attention to that as well, because if I don't feel anything, then I was taking that as a, oh, okay, don't worry about it, but that's not it.
I agree. It could be, it could be both. Either it's good, or it's like no.
So the interesting thing that happened to me in one session, I love it when they teach me, because I'm saying my guides, because I can tell they're just like over there going, she thinks she knows what she's doing. And then I humbly say, oh, I was wrong about that one. And it's the ego that wants to get in there and say, no, this is what happened at the last session. It would be the same thing, right? So I was working on someone, and the previous session or sessions, when I really started to be able to tap into the chakra centers and the energy of the body, I was hovering and I got a different sensation for that chakra than what I had been experiencing. So I couldn't interpret that, and afterward, or maybe we were in the middle of a session, that person was sharing with me how they were feeling. I'm like, I think this chakra feels great. This is going well. So so imagine that this is the body. I actually hold my hand here and just hover around, and I use the energy to train the chakra to spin and glow in the balance of all the other ones. So that's kind of how I do the energy balancing. But I just travel from crown to root, because I always want to leave people grounded, not up in the ethers and not able to drive away from my office. So I'm hovering above the body, giving this person the information. I'm like, what's going on in your life right now? And what was going on for them was the exact opposite of what I was feeling. So the sensation I was getting meant pay attention. It didn't mean balanced, not balanced, open, not open. So I chalked that one up for a lesson, and I paid attention that day, and I was proud of myself because the ego didn't get in the way. And I just said, oh, okay, so this is what we need to do. And we proceeded with the healing. But there's always something new that crops up when I think that I understand it. And what you said about the foundation, the birthing, our childhood is our foundation. So much is rooted. What I know about trauma and trauma-informed care is that so much is rooted in our experiences, and the birth experience is the first experience we have. So it makes so much sense that the root is going to carry those experiences, and that we're going to have to work hard throughout our lifetime to connect back into the early experiences we've had. And I'm not saying that people have to go back to their birth process to heal those things, but some people have. And some of those fears and anxieties and pains and chronic illnesses, those things happen from our experiences. So it makes so much sense that the root really is our foundation and builds upward. We have to build upward as we're healing. Because if you're, and then you said also, which I really identified with, is that you have to work from both ends, and understanding what's happening in the root with how we can access the crown, and what light that sheds on the rest of the chakras, the rest of the body. Yeah, so that's kind of my experience with the chakras, and I've had different experiences with different clients that their chakras are more in color or shape or size.
I was just drawing one. Here, tell me if this looks, I mean, it's a torus. It's a toroidal field. So it's the energy's coming down, but it's also going up and around and up and around in a donut shape. So it's going both directions at once. So it's like this, in like this, right? And then it goes the other way at the same time. Yeah.
So I picture it on the body. I pictured as the middle part is in the body itself, and so this side is going this way and this side's going this way because of the way the energy centers.
Oh, because it has to work its way around this way too.
But I mean,
I'm sure.
We are not done learning.
No, we're still babies in this. I mean, this is we're never going to stop learning.
But you're so right about the way the energy is. It's almost like it flows in ways we can't imagine, and then because
it's not 3D, it's not physical, so it can move in all of these.
Definition done.
That's it.
It's not 3D,
but no.
You can't imagine.
So with the 7, there's more than 7 chakras, but how it all comes together is that's how I perceive the aura. All those energies come together to emit the aura around the body in that same donut shape, which is, I try to ground people in that way, not necessarily ground to earth, but it's more of a balancing them all together in the aura with that motion, to try to just get them centered, not necessarily grounded. So I suppose I don't know. That's one thing I do. I'll stand at the bottom of the table and imagine their energy going up and around, and then I'll do the same thing, bringing the energy down and around, to try to smooth that out and connect everything to itself and to each other, kind of in that way. You had said something about the root, and the word forgiveness just popped up, so I thought that I needed to we can't talk about healing really without talking about forgiveness. Absolutely. And how we can go back in time, because even though the future and the past don't actually really exist, the stories of them do in our minds. And sometimes those stories can be really beautiful and uplifting, and they can create kind of the format for the beautiful things that we create in life. But at the same time, if those stories aren't pleasant and they do have trauma, and then trauma creates blame and hatred and all these disconnecting things, forgiveness really is the way I've found, for me anyway, to go back there and release those ties and those heavy, burdensome energies. And you don't have to go in the past if you don't feel like you need to. If you can identify what the belief is in the now. But sometimes for me, I need to go back just so I have like a frame of reference of how did it get there? What is it that I'm actually feeling? Because sometimes it's usually just connected to an emotion or like a negative pattern that I keep repeating, and I have to dig in and be like, where did this come from? And it always goes back to, do I need to forgive myself? Do I need to forgive someone else? Maybe I need to forgive the world for being a really tough place to exist, you know? And we were talking about being a victim earlier too, and I feel like this is a perfect place to talk about that too, because those places where we feel like we've been victimized, and we have, so this is not a way of saying life isn't hard and that bad things haven't happened and that they shouldn't have happened, but they did happen, and they do happen all the time. And, you know, going back with that forgiveness and realizing that the universe isn't inherently good or bad. We have duality, so we have light and dark. And out of those yin and yang energies, we can birth whatever we want to birth out of it. Just because any variety of terrible things that have happened, I feel like that's just all the potential for what do you prefer? What, and this is creation soup right here. What ingredients has my life given me to be able to create? Because we wouldn't have come into this world without God and the universe giving us the exact ingredients, as painful as it fucking was, to create the exact life that we wanted to create by coming here, you know? And sometimes we get so caught up in taking society or other people's version of what makes us happy that we aren't even on the right track. We're after money, or we're after prestige, or we're after God knows what, but we haven't done the inner searching of what do I actually want, you know, because maybe that's why it's not coming. Do you actually want that? Do you actually want to slave your life away for financial abundance when you can't take that with you? You know, that's just one example. There's 100 different ways to put that.
But what you're talking about is the example, the beautiful definition of forgiveness and acceptance, because we are co-creators in our world. We're co-creators of our life. So part of what you were saying, I think, was too that we may have been victimized, but we absolutely had a part of that. And it does not forgive any of the horrific circumstances that someone may experience. But if we can see that from this bigger side, this greater energetic side of things, that we understand that awful experience was something that made me who I am today and made me stronger. Or, and that's through years of forgiveness and acceptance of, I'm a co-creator in my environment. I co-created what I'm experiencing today. I may have wanted to learn rejection in this lifetime. So I placed people in my life who would reject me. And every once in a while, those people will pop up, and then I will think, why am I thinking about that person again? That's annoying. And so I'll go back to that moment in time, and I'll say, I'm a co-creator. Thank you for teaching me forgiveness. Thank you for teaching me the lesson that I set out to learn. Even though it's hard, I'm going to forgive myself because I'm trying to make myself something I'm not. By saying, that doesn't bother me, I'm good, it's fine. But I'm going to forgive that person for any ill will that I harbor against them as a human, because that's what frees me. I can say, I'm really sorry you were hurting too. I'm really sorry that you had your part in this position or this situation. Thank you for helping me learn this lesson. you know, I may say to myself, thank God I never want to experience that again.
Right.
You
It's
know?
not saying that it's okay and that
Right.
I
Right.
ever want this to happen again. It was not okay. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to carry this burden with me
The
any
baggage.
longer. And
Yeah.
maybe even further than that, because the whole point of like generations and generational healing
Hmm.
is about being better than the generation before. You know, being better
Exactly.
humans in the future than we are now. And
Yeah.
we can't get to that place where we're like better than we are now if we keep poking and sending bombs back and forth to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like war. It's like I attack you,
Right.
you attack me, I attack you, and we don't get
Yeah.
anywhere. So it's like
Yeah.
how can I disarm the situation so that I'm using what happened as fuel to go forward, to know what I prefer,
Right.
and to not accept those things in my life ever again. But I'm using it as fuel to, I forgive you and I love you, whatever. The universe will take care of you. And whoever needs to be, yes, whoever needs to be realigned, that's not my work. The universe will take care of you because you hopefully at the end of the day want to be a good person. And if you don't want to be a good person right now, someday you probably will and you'll have a heap of mess to work through, you know, to forgive your own self, right? And that's not my place. I think that's what the tipping point is too of, you know, this whole ascension and spiritual awakening is like once enough people realize, oh my God, if I'm hurting you, I'm hurting me because you're literally me in a different body. And I would be doing exactly what you're doing had I been born to your situation and circumstance. You know, I think, I think we'll be right there where it's like, oh, if we all just collaborate and help each other, then we can have a beautiful, beautiful existence here. And I'm sure it will be a lifelong endeavor, but thank you so much for this conversation and for being you and for the relationship we have. And I love you so very much. Love you. Bye.